We meet again. We met on the first day where we were doing an introduction kind of, and really I'm very excited to be back on the platform again to be able to deliver today's topic, which is the learning process. And I believe we've been learning. We've been picking, a few important things as we go along so that we can become better graduate supervisors, graduate student supervisors. So today we are going to be looking at the learning process. And the learning process, PhD study or master study is really a learning process, just like any other level of learning. Even graduate studies is a learning process. And so as a supervisor, it is our role to ensure that our students are learning in the process because we want them to be better teachers. We want to be better supervisors in future. So we must make sure that we inculcate the right or the correct learning process in them so that they can put their bar up to a level that is expected. So today we'll be looking at what it is or what does it mean in terms of a learning process for a graduate student. And as I continue, please feel free to drop a question on the chat or raise your hand if something is not clear. I think today I'm able to see hands and I'm also able to see my chats, so I can quickly respond to your query as I continue. However, I'll hopefully pause in between to pick any questions or to solicit for any questions. So the development of critical thinking and creative kinds of thinking is a major goal for graduate studies. You just don't want them to pass through. You want them to develop critical thinking. You want them to be creative, in their thinking. This is not undergraduate. This is not high school. Yeah, because you are training, most likely you're training a person who is going to be in academia. Or even if they're not in academia, they'll be in the industry and they will be at the level of research and development. They will be at the level of innovations management, etc. So you're looking at someone who will be able to guide an organization or a company or an academic group towards critical thinking, criticizing models, criticizing policies, criticizing processes and protocols, and at the same time creating new ideas, creating new protocols, creating new policies, creating new ways of doing things. Yeah, people who can stand before a congregation and actually argue pros and the cons of a certain topic or their areas of specialization. So at graduate level is really where we want to improve the focus of our students to be able to actually start thinking critically and creatively. And in today's topic, we'll basically major around the Bloom's taxonomy. And you probably have come across Bloom's taxonomy. Those of us who are not in trained teachers, maybe this may be new to some of us, but really the Bloom's taxonomy is a framework that provides a pathway that leads us to improve the thinking ability of our student. So what is Bloom's taxonomy? This is a classification of learning objectives organized by levels of complexity and specificity. Yeah. You learn, you group, you classify the learning objectives of your learner based, as the complexity increases, specificity also increases. So this Bloom's taxonomy gives you, as a supervisor, an opportunity to practice a range of thinking, and the taxonomy provides a structure for many different kind of questions. So that is how Bloom's taxonomy is. There are two types. One is the original Bloom's taxonomy. This on the left was the original Bloom's taxonomy that was developed by Bloom et al. The Blooms and a team and his colleagues developed this kind of thinking hierarchy. However, in 2001, another group of psychologists actually revised it to look the way it's looking on the right. Yeah, of course, there was a change on terminologies. There was probably also a change on structure and emphasis. But basically, Bloom's taxonomy, both the original and the revised, look at building knowledge from the lower level as you go up. And the lower level, you can see this is a pyramid. So, and when you look at the pyramid, really, the bottom is wide, is very big. But as you go up, it really narrows, meaning it grows in complexity and specificity, right? So at the beginning, the original Bloom's taxonomy talked of knowledge. This is information, right? Information. Do you know? Do you know this? Do you know that? Then move to comprehension. You know, can you comprehend? Can you understand? In other words, then can you apply what you've understood? Then can you analyze? Then can you synthesize information? And can you evaluate? But when Anderson and team revised it in 2001, of course, there were changes in terminologies. So knowledge became remembering. And why did they change from knowledge to remembering? Because their argument was that thinking is an active process. Therefore, verbs are more accurate. That, you know, verbs are more accurate, you know, where knowledge is a product of thinking. And, you know, was inappropriate to describe a category of thinking. So they replaced the word knowledge with remembering. Yeah, thinking is an active process. Thinking is active. It's an ongoing process. It's an active process. Yeah. So you'd rather describe that process as knowledge. I mean, as remembering instead of using the word knowledge. Yeah. So remembering. So this is where you ask questions like, do you know? Define what is. Okay. Really at the bottom level. This is probably what we start introducing to our undergraduate students when they are beginning at undergraduate. The first courses define biological sciences, define physics, define engineering, you know, define a taxonomy. What is taxonomy? What is classification? Defining concepts. You want them to define, you want them to remember at that level. And then as it grows, it becomes, you grow from remembering to understanding. Okay. So comprehension was renamed to understanding. Okay. So application became applying, analysis became analyzing, right? But then here, then you can see a change where now evaluation comes down here and becomes evaluating. Evaluating instead of evaluation. Evaluating. Yeah. These are active processes. Okay. But then this synthesis moved up the pyramid and was renamed creating. Okay. Creating. And so when you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, you start from lower level to higher order thinking. From recalling information, from recognizing, from listing, describing, retrieve, rename, find, etc. And you start moving up to understanding. And understanding is now where a student can explain, explaining ideas or concepts. They can start summarizing, they can start paraphrasing or classifying or even explaining. And then applying is now using information in another familiar situation, implementing, carrying out, executing, etc. They've learned a concept They've understood a concept in understanding, but now you want them to apply in a different field. Okay. But then from there, when we get to the higher order of thinking, or the higher order of learning. So the first three would be what we call the lower order. However, application can touch between the higher order and the lower order. Okay. And so when we are talking of graduate teaching or graduate learning, we now want them to start from maybe a higher level of applying, to analyzing, to evaluating, and finally to creating. Okay. You want them to break information into parts, to explore different understandings. This is now where they start looking at theories. Hello. Different theories and relationships. Okay.
Hello.
You want them to
Dr.
start.
Kenyoro.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. I'm looking at the slide. It is not seen clearly. I'm not sure whether it can be expanded a little bit. The slides. I'm not seeing it well.
Is that similar? Is that the same problem to everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yes, more.
Yes.
It's small? Okay, let's see. Because I'm doing my full slides. I'm doing slideshow. Let me just try again. Is it better?
Oh, yes, it is clear now. Can see it well now.
Yes, it's okay.
It's good. Thank you. Yeah, still good. Please, Patrick, let me know if I'm still good.
Yeah, it's very good now.
I think you can use a slideshow because the slides are displayed on the side and it's taking up a bit of space. So try to use slideshow. So
are people seeing different things? Because
now we are seeing we don't see that. Okay.
Yeah,
the slides have disappeared.
Yes. I want to try to do a different slideshow again. See maybe it's going to work. Okay. How about now?
It's having the next slide on the side, so they're sharing the space on the screen. And I think that's what's making the main slide look a bit smaller. That is okay. Now just go to slideshow.
Okay, just a minute. Let me just disable some of my slides. I think I have multiple slides. I mean, multiple screens.
Okay.
Can you see my slides?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I can see them.
yeah, okay, fine. Now you've got it.
It is better now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
Good. Now I cannot see. If you raise your hand, I will not be able to see. So I'll be giving breaks in between.
Okay.
Just in case someone has a question. Okay, so I was saying that we are looking then at encouraging our graduate students to actually use this high order of thinking, probably starting from the higher level of applying, then to start analyzing. This is breaking information into parts to explore understandings and relationships, doing comparison, organizing, deconstructing theories and ideas, interrogating ideas, and finding new answers. And then you want them to evaluate, justify why they took a decision, course of action, hypothesizing, critiquing, and finally, the highest order you want them to create. You want them to generate new ideas. And this is now where we want new innovations, new theories, new products, etc. So we'll quickly be looking at each and every one of these levels. See what really do we expect of the supervisor and of the student. And then finally, we'll end up with a group discussions on how we can actually apply this in our various disciplines, actually. So I will not take a lot of time on the first three levels, but I will quickly go through them because they are also important. You want to use them to also, when you're assessing knowledge, remember, I think on the first day, we said you need to assess knowledge of your student within the first month of recruitment. Within the first month, you want to really assess, can this person, does he have or she have the basic knowledge, basic information? Do they know concepts? Do they know basic concepts? If they are agricultural economists, do they understand the very basic things? Sorry, yes?
Hello.
Someone asking a question?
No.
Okay. So please then let's kindly mute if we are not asking a question. So remembering this is what we talked of. You want the learner to recall, to restate, to remember learning information. If there is a student who is registering or enrolling for a master's or a PhD in nutrition, for example, you want them to understand the basic concepts of nutrition. Do they know what is nutritional assessment? Do they know anthropometric measures? Do they know all those basic things? Yeah. So basically here you want to assess the student at the very early level to understand, to see if they understand. And probably this is why you find a lot of universities insisting that you need to at least have a basic or a first degree in a certain field. Yeah, you want to do a master's in agricultural engineering, you must have a basic degree in agricultural engineering, or a related kind of discipline, maybe agriculture, agronomy, or physics, something else, because that helps you have some basic information. Yeah, so really, at remembering stage, you really want the student to list, to memorize, yeah, to distinguish. This is where you ask them questions like, what is, yeah? Can you group, underline, select, cite, list? Okay, very basic things, because you're assessing knowledge, you're assessing thinking, okay, at that low level. So at this stage of remembering, you as the supervisor, your roles would be to direct, to direct them towards reading a certain paper on basic concepts. is to tell them what this is, what a certain concept is about, to show them and to examine or question them, and also to evaluate whether they actually know, if they can remember these basic concepts. Because some of these basic concepts are the ones that are building blocks into higher levels of learning. Okay. And so at remembering stage, you expect the student to respond. For example, what is food composition? My background is in food and nutrition, so you'll get a lot of examples from my background, where I come from. So I'll ask a student, what is food composition? And I will expect the student to respond. I'll teach them about food composition. I would want them to absorb the information, the knowledge, and I would want them to remember and recognize when they see a fruit. For example, they'll know what kind of a fruit this is and what kind of nutrients we get from this fruit. For example, if it's an apple, okay? If it's a vegetable, what vegetable is it? What family group or what food group would you place this vegetable? And probably what nutrients does it provide to my body? So I want them to retell the story. I want them to regurgitate, mainly. I want them to describe. Yeah. And most of the time when you're teaching them, they are mainly passive recipients. They are just receiving information because you're passing knowledge, you're passing basic information. Okay. So some of the engagement activities and products would probably things to do, like make a story map showing main events of a story. Yeah, you give them a story, and then you make a story map to show what are the main events of this story. Yeah, make a time plan of your typical day, concept map, list of keywords, and we use keywords very much when you're doing abstracts for conferences and papers. Keywords, these are words that help one in remembering or recognizing what area of study this would be. Okay, so this is, at this stage, we ask questions like what happened, where did it happen, you know, what is a nutrient, okay, where do we find vitamin A in our food, in our food chains, why do we need vitamin A in our bodies, okay, how is vitamin A used in our bodies, okay, when do we need vitamin A most in the life cycle? Who needs it more? Okay, is it a small child? Is it a grown child? At what age? Okay, which type of vitamin A do they need? Is it beta carotene? Is it alpha carotene? Is it what type of carotene? What type of vitamin A? Is it retinol, for example? So these are questions you ask for you to elicit remembering, or to engagement activities to elicit that. Like I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time at that level. Level 2 is understanding. This is where now the learner grasps the meaning of information by interpreting and translating what has been learned. Okay, they learned about basic concepts. What is a food? What is a nutrient? How do we get nutrients into our bodies? What are the sources of vitamins in our bodies? So now we want them to start interpreting. We want them to start exemplifying, summarizing, classifying, comparing different sources of vitamin A. Is it green vegetables, or is it citrus fruit? Is it a pawpaw that is a better source of vitamin A, for example? You want them to start explaining, okay, why is vitamin A a better, why is milk a better source of vitamin A compared to a vegetable, a green leafy vegetable like sukuma wiki or spinach. Okay, so at this level, you want them to start explaining ideas and concepts. Yeah. So at understanding level, then you are seeking to see if they have an understanding of the information that was given to them. Okay, so this is where you ask questions like identify, discuss, recognize. And even when we are setting exams, colleagues, I know at university level, we start asking questions as the level of learning increases. Yeah. So in an exam, you are supposed to set different types of questions. You'll start with the basic level of remembering or knowledge, and then understanding. Now, when you want them to start observing, interpreting, estimate, okay, recognize, reorganize, associate, define, okay? So in your area of expertise, you can start already asking questions to your student to see actually if they have an understanding, okay? Discuss the importance of vitamin A in a human body, okay? Now you want to see if the student understands what are the sources, what are the better sources than others, how the body uses vitamin A, okay? What are the metabolites or the products of vitamin A? What are the deficiencies of vitamin A? And how can vitamin A deficiencies be managed, for example? I'm just giving examples from my field of whatever. So you want them to start showing that they actually understand. And here is where you want them to outline, you want to label, you want them to do a collection, interpret basic concepts, etc., etc. So some of the activities, engagements, activities, and products, you want them to illustrate what they think about the main idea, illustrate, retell the story in their own words, or write a summary. You want them to prepare a flow chart to illustrate the sequence of events, etc. So at understanding level, the supervisor demonstrates, yeah, you demonstrate a certain concept, you listen as a student explains or as they discuss the concept back, okay? You question. Yes, you said vitamin A, an apple is a better vitamin A source compared to spinach. Why do you say so? You want them to, you're doing comparisons and contrasting, you're comparing kale and apple as good as sources of vitamin. And as a student, you expect them now to explain to you. You want them to describe the process. You want them to restate, to translate, demonstrate. Basically, here we start seeing an active participant. They are not just passive. They are now active. They are explaining things because now they are understanding. They have started to understand. Okay, so initially at the lower level, they were possibly just passive, just listening as you give them info, as you explain concepts, as you explain definitions and theories. But here now you want them to become active. You want them to start demonstrating that they actually are understanding some of those basic concepts. Level 3 is applying. It is still at the lower level, lower order of thinking, but up to some point, there is the higher order of thinking starts at this point now. And now this is where the learner makes use of information in a context different from the one in which it was learned. And this is mainly for those of us who give projects to our undergraduate students. You now want them to do a project to actually use the information they have learned in the 3 years of study. They'll do a final year project. They'll do a final year report or a term paper, for example. Okay, so you want them to carry out an activity based on the information from remembering, from understanding. Now you want them to apply that to some level. Okay, you want them to implement a project. You want them to carry out an experiment. Okay, most of us in this meeting, we probably give student experiments to our students. So you want them to do an analysis. You want them to analyze some properties of a certain material, not because it's new, but because you want them to practice what they have learned in the earlier years of study, first year, second year, third year, okay? Or you want them to use the concepts that they have learned to do a small study, a small experiment, a small field work, you know, to see if they can apply some theory and execute information. So you want to use this information in another familiar situation, okay? So you'll find your students telling you, I want to do a project and I want to use a certain fruit that grows in Western Uganda, for example, to make a food product, to make a juice, okay? So they want to use the chemistries they've learned. They want to use the basic concepts of processing that they've learned and now start applying this, okay? They want to use the basics of a mathematical model, some model that they learned, and now they want to probably use that model in a real life situation, okay? Apply. And this happens even when you are teaching in a unit. You grow as you teach your unit, you arrange it to such that it gets to a point where you want your student to start applying the knowledge that they've learned to do some basic experiments or construct a few things here and there, okay? So in applying, you want them to construct a model to demonstrate how a certain concept works, right? It doesn't have to be genius. It doesn't have to be new or very innovative, because at this level, you want to see actually, can they use the understanding that they have gained to construct something and to demonstrate if something works, okay? Probably you want them to go out there and take photographs and arrange them or plan them in a way that they demonstrate a particular point, okay? You want, probably it was something to do with indigenous vegetables. And so you take them out to the botanical garden of the institution. And now they take different pictures. And then they can come and group those pictures in terms of different classifications of the leaves, for example, okay? You want them to write a journal article, a chapter, a topic, a term paper, okay? You want them, for those learning marketing and others, you want them to design a marketing strategy for a product using a known strategy. So there's a known strategy, and here you tell them, now I have product X, Y, Z, and this product, I need you to design a marketing strategy for this product. This product is used for relieving stress. I don't know what this product is called, but I just use it to play with it, and somehow it helps to relax. So I want you, my student, to develop a strategy to market this product. Develop a marketing strategy for this product. Yeah, basically they are using what? A strategy that is known to develop something for something else. Okay, so in applying, the supervisor shows. Okay, this is where you show or you demonstrate. If you are giving an experiment, you demonstrate how an experiment is done, how to do X, Y, Z. This is where you give them methods, protocols, okay, or a manual of which has a complete list of protocols that are used to analyze something. Okay, so you show them, you facilitate them, you actually do with them. This is where you take them to the field and you collect information together with. Yeah, they see if you are probably teaching them how to design a new equipment. You actually go into the field or into the workshop and actually dismantle an engine and then show how it's actually put together again. You want them to see, you want them to observe how it's done by you, or by the technician. Okay, you organize, yeah, you question them. And here is now where students start solving problems. Okay, this engine is not working. This engine showed symptoms X, Y, Z. What could be the problem? Okay, so when this car was brought into the workshop, the engine was making a cracking sound. It was producing a lot of smoke, and the vehicle was losing power. What is the problem? Can you diagnose the problem based on knowledge, based on information? And at graduate level, probably now, this is now where we start bringing them in, where we ask them the famous question of, what problem are you solving? And if you have you've done your master's or your PhD, this is a question you are asked 1,000,001 times. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? And I think the first, the earlier presenters talked about problem statements and justifications, etc. So at graduate level, we start them here. You will ask them to do a concept, clearly saying what are the issues they think are affecting a certain area of study, and then identify problems, and then demonstrate how they can use existing knowledge to solve that problem. Okay, now they are starting to apply at graduate level. They are starting to solve problems. Okay, this is now where they will start calculating and compiling and illustrating. So at a higher level of application, now we start seeing graduate studies now. Points where graduate studies can actually start coming in, because you are now starting to evoke higher level thinking. And now this is where our graduate study really starts to come in. Okay, can I pause there for a question? Please go ahead if you have a question. Okay, I guess we continue. At level 4 now, is where we start asking the next question, which is analyzing. Analyzing. Now we are really deep in the high order thinking.
There's a hand, Prof.
Yes, please.
There's a hand from Jen.
Please go ahead, Jane. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. Jane, go ahead. Is Jane speaking?
I don't know that it was Jen or Faith, but I had put up my hand and then I put it down.
It is Faith, sorry. Sorry, it is Faith. It's Faith Namayengo, sorry.
Yeah, that's me, thanks. Yeah, when we were developing a PhD in human nutrition in Chambogo, and when we were stating one of the objectives of the program, we stated something like the student, by the end of the program, the student should be able to, there is always stated the objective such that they implied that there was a lot of learning that was going to take place. Yeah. Like the program was going to instill knowledge and skills in data analysis and stuff like that. And it was really queried, like, and our program is by research only. So the question was, the way you have stated those objectives is not going to pass, because we don't expect your PhD students to be doing a lot of the knowledge acquisition. You're not going to be imparting knowledge to the students. So when I see you going over this taxonomy, I'm really wondering at what level, for example, a PhD by research will be coming in. it would look like level 1 of knowledge acquisition is not something that they will really do a lot of. Yeah, ways 1, remembering, recalling information. That's not something we, maybe you can comment more on that, because it's as if they will be coming in a lot on the applying and analyzing, but the remembering and understanding, how do we bring that out in a PhD program which is organized by research?
Thank you. Thank you very much. When I was at this slide, I said at PhD, at master's and PhD level, we really expect them to start coming from applying, going upwards. Okay, this is now where we want to start hearing them starting to apply issues. And that is a slide that we were getting into. That is a point where we were getting into before I asked for questions. Yes, it's important that they
would you really
understand
our part, the understanding, the remembering and understanding? Is that something we really want to put out for them? Because I remember in one of the presentations, somebody saying these students come to us to learn. If there was no felt need to learn something, then they wouldn't come. So I don't know whether it's, again, fair for us to just begin at the application level, or we really have to make sure that in one way or the other, we facilitate some kind of remembering and understanding in one way or the other. Thanks.
Thanks, Faith. I think learning, learning happens all along, all the way from remembering to creating. All this is learning. Even when they are applying, doing application, they are learning, because you'll see there's a role of the teacher and there's a role of the student. The teacher will probably be demonstrating, the teacher will be facilitating, the teacher will be querying, demonstrating, comparing and contrasting, etc. However, you want to measure when they are coming in at PhD level, you want to encourage high order thinking, yes, but these students must have some basic understanding, basic concepts of a certain area. And that is why I said a lot of our programs, PhD programs or even master's programs, have prerequisites, basic requirements, that if you're doing a PhD in nutrition, for example, you must have done a bachelor's and a master's in nutrition, food technology, food science, or a related field. Why? Because we expect you to have some basic concepts of remembering and recalling, and some understanding of those concepts. Yeah, because we at PhD level and master's level, we want you to now start applying. And that's the understanding behind. You can't do a bachelor's in law and a master's in law, but you're here wanting to do your PhD in agricultural economics, for example. Okay, because there's these first two areas you'll be really missing, and you will not be able to apply or analyze or evaluate or create if you really don't have the first two concepts, right? So I agree with the people who are querying your program, because you really want to encourage higher order thinking, right? But the lower order thinking, it is assumed that they are taken care of by the prerequisite degrees that this person has done. Or in some institution, you are told, if you want to do a PhD in this area and your basic understanding, your basic first degrees were not in the area, you have to do some courses. I don't know what they call it in your universities. Yeah, but when the other master's students are doing this course, you join them and do it. Even some bachelor 4 years unit are offered, you are told you must. I think some universities call them audit. You must audit course X, Y, Z, because you are lacking basic understanding in those areas. Then you can come now and do your PhD research in this area. But I want you to know one thing, that all these areas are areas of learning. There is learning in each of these processes. Because even when a student is creating something, they are creating this under the guidance of an expert, of a supervisor who has knowledge, who has information, and who has practice in a certain area. So the student is learning from best practices. So there is learning, but at the very high level. Okay? Is that clear, Faith?
Yes, yes, it is. Thanks a lot. Yeah, you've clarified it.
Good. Okay, so
There
we
was
go
a hand
back.
from Professor Dominic.
Professor, yes, go ahead, Professor. Professor?
Thank you, John. Midway, I lowered my hand because you interjected with the answer, but to echo more emphasis on the knowledge at all levels is the answer you gave. People who migrate from one foundational degree to a different one because of the market and other circumstances, interests and opportunities, that makes some of these graduate students, particularly PhD, not have productive, innovative, and good examples to show. During the lecture I gave, you ably answered what we call audit, course audits. All the universities globally, any African graduate student at master's, you must go with honors degree. At PhD, you must do biometry. So some of these things we must accept. But in order to answer the program queries for the Chambogo University, I want to say that the one who was reviewing the program had an inner and strong depth of how we teach courses in East Africa. They are very shallow. So if our teaching is shallow, if our own examples are not to the point, how do you raise a PhD by research? So it calls for a component of knowledge gathering, knowledge inculcation of the audited courses. I thank you in the interest of time.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, you're very right, and thank you for adding to that. Okay. I think increasingly we are seeing students moving from their basic degrees to probably slightly different or related fields. And I think in our East African or our African context, it's us who are coming in late. If you go to the developing world, you find someone who did a basic degree in geography, a master's in geology or something, doing a study area at PhD level on human nutrition. But they have captured deficits. For them to cover deficits in knowledge, they have what they call courses. They have PhD courses that you must do, and you must accumulate a certain number of credit points. Okay, so your supervisor or the department of the school will admit you, but they will say, we have course X, Y, Z that you must accumulate, you must do. Those are compulsory that you must do them. And in addition, you must select 3, 4, 5 others for you to accumulate at least 12 or 10 credit points for you to actually proceed or to qualify to be able to defend your thesis. So they do the courses as they do their research to increase the knowledge. So those are other ways in which our compatriots in the developed country have done. So you will find someone did a master's and a bachelor's in communication skills, for example, but then do a PhD in entrepreneurship in some university in the US. Yeah, but in the process, they had to do courses to accumulate credit points. So those ones help them cover the lower level of knowledge and understanding. Okay, and then they can start applying and analyzing. So, is there another question, Mwenda? If you can see another hand.
There's no other hand.
Good, thank you. So analyzing. This is now the level where really we expect our students, graduate students, to really, kind of start. Okay. You want at this level for them to be able to analyze issues, to analyze situations, to analyze experiments, okay, to investigate, to criticize, compare, to relate, to discriminate, to categorize, okay? So this is the level where they'll need to start looking at literature. They'll start analyzing existing issues and be able to pick gaps in between. They are starting to analyze what exists, what ought to be done, and then they go back to literature and start looking at what can be done. So at this point, you now are starting to invoke their basic understanding now to start doing higher order thinking. Okay, this is now the point, is not the point where they start asking what or why or what. Okay, they start asking why are there high levels of malnutrition reported in Uganda, for example. Yet there's a lot of food in Uganda. If there's a country that has high food diversity, is Uganda among our East African countries. You'll find almost every fruit in Uganda. You'll find almost every vegetable that grows in the tropics in Uganda, almost all year round. You'll find all types of livestock in Uganda, right? From rabbits to what? You'll find a lot of nutritious edible insects flying in Uganda, things you'll not find in some of our ASA countries. Okay, so you want the student now to start asking yourself, so why do we still have, I don't know what are the statistics now in Uganda, but probably levels of stunting in Uganda at 20-something%. I'm not sure. Faith, you are a nutritionist. What is the level of stunting in Uganda?
I think it's about 20 or slightly about there. Yeah, it still remains high, although it has gone down.
Yeah, so it's why, so you want the student to start asking, why is still there high levels of stunting among children 5 years of age and below in Uganda? Yet we have a lot of food in Uganda, food diversity. And so you as a supervisor, you want to see if the student can start thinking, what are the causes of malnutrition? Okay, is food the only cause of malnutrition? This is now where they start bringing in the basic concepts, the knowledge, the understanding, the application to start analyzing. What is the impact of basic causes, applied causes, immediate causes of malnutrition? This is where you expect the student now to just start thinking, apart from food, what else would actually be causing malnutrition in Uganda? What is the level of health infrastructure? What is the level of sanitation, for example? What is the level of literacy levels? Yeah. Now they start analyzing how all these different concepts build towards malnutrition. Okay. So at this point, you expect them to probably give things like report. You want them to give a report. Yeah. You want them to design questionnaires to gather information, right? And at master's level, a lot of our master's level, you find them designing questionnaires to gather information in the field. Now they want to go to a district in northern Uganda and start looking at what are the causes of malnutrition. Yes, the food diversity is high, they have all the food, but what are the causes? What are the determinants of this? That's where they'll start looking at political instability. They will start looking at culture. They will start looking at many things, okay? Why would people not use solar energy, solar power in East Africa, in Tanzania, for example? Why is it still not widespread? Yet we have a lot of sun running 24/7 almost the whole year. But still, we are waiting for Julius Nyerere hydroelectric dam to be built so that we can get electricity. We still want to use electricity. Why have people not adopted? Why? What are the stages? What is hindering? Okay, you want the student now to start analyzing issues. You want them to make flow charts to show critical stages, prepare reports, review works and papers and manuscripts, and this is where you tell them to do literature review, okay? Because that helps them to analyze different situations and different issues, analyzing, okay? This is for those in the humanities and social sciences. This is where you want them to write a commercial to sell a new product, for example. Okay, they have analyzed different determinants of selling this product, and you want them to now develop something, develop a commercial. Okay, so at this stage, the supervisor probes. You want to ask you want to ask the student to tell you, so what exactly is the gap that you are addressing? What exactly are the issues around this topic that you want to address? What are the causes of this? So you want to probe, you want to guide this person on how to go to collect the data, how to observe the right findings, okay, how to design experiments, how to evaluate outcomes. So at this point, you as a supervisor, you are an agent of learning, because you are acting as a resource. Using the knowledge that you have, you are asking the right questions, you are helping the person organize their thoughts and their experiments and their design so that they can be able to get the right answers, right? This is the point where you help the student to dissect findings, okay? You help them dissect. We found this in Kenya. We found this in Morogoro, Tanzania. We found this in Karamoja, in Uganda. So what is common between the three areas? What is different? You want them to dissect why something happens in a certain area. Okay. So the student, on the other hand, is expected to discuss with you or to discuss with peers. You want them to uncover issues. You want them to uncover practices. You want them to uncover a new way of working of a certain experiment. You want them to... Yes? Vincent, go ahead. Vincent. Okay, I think we can't hear Vincent. Okay, so at this point, you want the student to start arguing.
Hello.
Or debating.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry for the interruption a bit. Now, it is very interesting to see that when analyzing, a student has a role to play and the supervisor has a role to play. But assuming you're supervising in an area which is probably quite remote, or you're not familiar, does it imply that you you need also to do some reading here and there to familiarize yourself with that area in order for you to really guide the student well. What do you say about that?
Yes, thank you, Vincent. Yes, if really, you see, a supervisor is a person who keeps learning. You cannot afford not to keep learning if you are the supervisor. Let me tell you, sometimes sometimes you get very brilliant students who actually challenge you. And sometimes you have to stop a discussion and tell them, let me go read about that. Let me go find out more. Then let's meet tomorrow and have a discussion. So a supervisor must always keep abreast with latest knowledge, latest technology, new findings, okay? In fact, you as a supervisor, you should be the one giving them the new papers that are coming out in a certain field. If you know, student John Kinyoro is working on this new area of discovery, it is your role as a supervisor to keep learning what is new, what is coming up, and you keep sending them information. And one way of doing that is, Google Scholar helps us a lot. By the way, I hope all of us, if not most of us, have registered with Google Scholar. And in Google Scholar, you can be able to set alerts for specific titles of papers of your interest, depending on your area of study or area where you're supervising. So any new paper that is published in that area, you're given an alert and a link is sent to you. And then you read the paper. And this happens every week. You set intervals. You may want it once a week, which day? You may want it every day. So you have to keep learning for you to be able to guide. You have to keep learning for you to be able to act as a resource. Otherwise, let me tell you, students know how to say, so-and-so does not know what they're doing. I have heard it from students sometimes. They say, my supervisor XYZ really doesn't know. He'll just correct grammar on my paper. Okay? But they know supervisor XYZ is very competent in this area. Yeah, because that supervisor is likely to give scientific contribution. Okay? So, Vincent, as a supervisor, you must keep learning. If you're not generating new knowledge, you must keep abreast of any new knowledge that is being generated in that field. Okay? Is that clear, Vincent?
Oh, yes, please. It is clear.
Good. Thank you very much. Is there another hand before I continue? Joseph, can you see another hand?
No,
Okay,
no, there's not.
Thank you. So at this point, you want the student to analyze data collected. You want them to start discussing issues, discussing topics, discussing and debating on concepts. They start forming opinions and viewpoints. Okay? You want them to make inquiry. So they are very active now. They are not passive anymore. Here is an active participant. Okay? Sometimes a student will ask you a question and you'll tell them, you throw it back to them. Tell them, what do you think? Can you go read a paper by Kinyuru et al. 2023? Go read a paper by Vincent 2021 on this topic. Look at them. Let's discuss that tomorrow. Okay? This is the point where you tell them, by the way, some new findings came up on a study conducted in Algeria on this topic. It was published in Journal XYZ. Can you look at this? Look at method published in Methodex journal. Methodex is a journal that publishes protocols and methods. These guys have published a paper on the protocols of doing this and this and this. Can you go look at it? Use that to critique your methodology or your protocol, or your findings. Use that to examine the design or to critique the design. Then you meet together and dissect issues together. So there's a lot of learning. And for you to impart learning, you must be ahead you must be ahead as a supervisor. Evaluating. This is the fifth level of learning, or higher thinking. And the learner makes decisions based on in-depth reflection, criticism, and assessment. Okay? They are making decisions based on in-depth reflection. When you send them a paper, okay, they look at it, they read the paper and the findings, then they look at their findings. Can they reflect and see what is the comparison between their finding and findings of Byarugaba 2023 of work done in Western Uganda? Yet they did their work in Southern Tanzania. What can they critique? What is the assessment? Can they judge? Can they detect issues? Can they detect discrepancies? Okay. Many times you find students saying, my values were higher than those of Kinyuru 2023. Okay. And they stop there. Or my values were similar to values of Wahoo of 2017. And then they stop there and they don't move on, right? But at this level, you need to encourage to ask the student, why are they different? Well, the methods used the same. The methods used by Wahoo and the methods used by Kinyuru, were they the same? What were the settings similar? Okay. Yes, they may have studied the same plant, for example. They may have modeled the same concepts. But were the factors, were the parameters the same? Were the methods used the same? Why do you think there is a difference between your work and their work? This is an answer that the supervisor may not have. But the student is supposed to go back and read the paper and be able to say, yes, my results were lower than those of Kinyuru. Kinyuru actually looked at the work this way. However, we looked at our work differently, from a different lens. And that is why probably we found different results. Okay? Sometimes you find us supervisors telling a student, oh, that has been done. That has been, you can't study mangoes. Mangoes have been studied for so long. But what has been studied? Right? Were they studied from the same viewpoint that you want to study them? Those are the critical questions that now the student needs to start thinking or asking, so that as they set the experiment, right, as they start experimenting, yeah, they have an open mind, or they have a clear understanding of what exactly they want to evaluate. So this is now where they'll set, studies, they will set laboratory experiments, they'll probably go to the field and evaluate the effects of the impact of influence of something. Yeah, they want to evaluate. And then at the end of the day, can they justify a decision or a course of action? That is the biggest question. Can they justify why they did what they did and why their findings are the way they are? Okay, and why they are different from so-and-so, or why they are similar from so-and-so. If they did them differently, if they did the experiment differently, would the results be the same? Okay, so here they are validating, they are predicting, they are determining. Okay, that is why when we are setting objectives, now you start seeing words like to determine, to assess. Okay, to validate. When you're validating methods or models, you're saying this model had been used to study a certain population in Southern Sudan, for example. But can the same model, apply to the pygmies in some forests in Uganda or in Congo, right? You've been saying we use more BMI, for example. BMI is, to the nutritionist, BMI is what? The nutritionist in the house, BMI?
Body mass index.
Even a nutritionist know. Body mass index, right? So body mass index has been studied, and we have cutoff points. But someone will argue, do the same cutoff points apply to the guys in Southern Sudan, the tall guys in Southern Sudan? Would the same parameters, would the same BMI apply to short guys of the Kalahari Desert, for example? Yeah. So sometimes you want to validate methods. You want to critique methods. Sometimes you even want to reject a method or a theory. Okay. Yes. You can actually set a study to whose final whatever is to reject, because you have built a case where you feel this is not going to work. These BMI cutoff points cannot work. And you have your own reasons. You have done your analysis of literature and information. And now you set experiments, and you actually you are evaluating data in order to reject a certain protocol, a certain viewpoint, or a certain theory. Okay, so here, some of the engagement activities and products include preparing a list of criteria to make a judgment, okay, conducting debates about an issue or social interest, making a booklet about rules or viewpoints or issues you see as important, being member of panel discussion to discuss your views. And a lot of our scientists, are invited as experts in panel discussions, because here you have done your evaluations, or you have evaluated findings, and you can actually, as an authority, say, we did this and we actually found this. And so we believe that the reason why we are getting extended rains against the advice of the meteorological department, it's because the patterns are no longer predictable, or the protocols that the meteorology department has been using are outdated. And we have data to prove it. Okay, so they are not as accurate as they were. We have compared with this other protocol, and this is giving real-time data. It is more accurate. Okay, this is where, at the point where you give advice, you write letter to the ministry, giving guidance or giving advice, technical reports or policy briefs on changes that needs to be done, for example. Okay, this is also a point where you write a student writes their report, or thesis, or a review, or even a journal paper, because they have experimented, they have analyzed now, okay, and now they have evaluated this work, and they can now form a viewpoint. They can actually present a viewpoint. So, as a supervisor, during the evaluating phase, then the supervisor clarifies some of the viewpoints. The supervisor gives insight as part of learning. The supervisor accepts, yes, you are actually right to argue like this, or you are wrong to argue like this. The supervisor guides Remember here we said the supervisor is the expert here. And if the being the expert doesn't mean they know everything. So they must keep abreast of what is new in their areas of interest. At this point, the student makes judgments, right? Makes conclusions, disputes issues, compares issues, critiques and argues. Yeah. This is the point where they can even now stand in a defense and defend their statements. This is the point where they have submitted a paper and a reviewer feels is a different, certain method was not appropriate. But the student can now be able to say, no, we actually looked at that protocol you're proposing. It could not work for us because of 1, 2, 3, 4. Because now they have a very high level order of thinking that they can actually be able to justify what they have done. They can be able to argue with peers. Okay, so it's a very active, it's a very active level of learning. It's not just sitting to listen. No, this is actually where the student engages very, very strongly. And this is the point probably where conflicts start coming up with the supervisor, because the student has done analysis, they've evaluated, and now they are forming a viewpoint. And probably this viewpoint is different from what you actually discovered in your study. Yeah, you studied a certain aspect, you found, beautiful findings that have formed discussions and policy over several years that you have been the expert. But here your student has come, done a brilliant work, studied, analyzed, evaluated, and now they are forming a viewpoint which contradicts or is contrary to your finding. You start seeing disputes now, conflicts start coming up, critiques, right? This is where you find examiners having a different viewpoint, but the student is able to argue with what they came up with or what they discovered and still be accepted. The final level is creating. The fifth level is creating. This is now the point where now they are using from knowledge to understanding, from remembering to understanding, to applying, to analyzing and evaluating, and now they are creating new ideas and information using what has been previously learned. So this is the time they design a new equipment, they design a new protocol, right? They design new food product, for example, a new product. This is the point that they construct. This is they are bringing out their innovation. The ideas that they've generated, now they're becoming innovations. This is their time, they are inventing, they are producing, okay? You are studying X, Y, Z because you wanted to breed. The goal was to produce a new breed of chicken, for example. So you designed experiments, you studied, you changed things, you changed factors, and what? Finally, you have come to, you have evaluated all of them, and finally you're saying, now with this, we have a new breed of chicken because we've tested it against all these varieties, all these other species, or varieties, or I don't know what they call them. And we've discovered that this is unique. It's different from the kienyeji chicken, it's different from the other kienyeji, it's different from the other. These are the unique attributes of our chicken. Okay, so this is now new, right? This is the goal for every PhD. Should be to create new ideas. It doesn't have to be a tangible product. It can actually be a new formula. It can actually be, a new recipe for doing things. It could be discovering a new chemical in a certain plant, right? This is the point where you really want to push your PhD. Not all of them are geared towards generating products or whatever, but they should at least reach a level where they can create ideas, they can create new structures, new planning methods, new ways of devise new ways of doing things, or ways of viewing things. Okay. And this is the top level of higher order thinking. So you want them to compose, you want them to assemble a new equipment, you want them to organize information, new classification, right? The other day, organization here in Kenya called ISIPE, they classified a new species of cricket and they named it Pedus ISIPE, right? Because they did a lot of studies around this insect, both from a morphological level to molecular level, and they came to a conclusion that this is actually a new species of cricket that has not been classified anywhere in the world, and they gave it a new name. And it is now published, it's out there, yeah? And if you go look it up, they have, if you Google that name, you'll see all the characteristics, even the songs they produce. They've actually been able to show they have a different kind of a song from other insects that have been classified. They've been able to assemble a lot of information. Of course, that was done through PhD studies, different studies. Yeah, this is the point where you're able to predict. Right? A friend of mine who was doing mathematics, I think mathematics or applied mathematics, developed a model for predicting electoral outcomes, presidential electoral outcomes in Kenya. One of probably, I think 2 or 3 so years ago, came up with a model that could predict electoral outcomes. Don't ask me whether it was correct in the previous elections, but they used historical data of previous elections in Kenya, and they developed a model that can now actually be able to be used to predict, putting so many factors together in, tribal factors, money, economy, all those factors. If you put together, blend them together, you can actually then be able to put candidate X, Y, Z in the formula and be able to see the odds for this one winning are higher, the odds for this one losing are higher, etc., etc. So at this point, you want them to set up something, to produce something, to predict something, to concode, to compile, to forecast, or even to propose. So at this level, the supervisor serves as a facilitator, as an extender, extends the information that the student has evaluated to actually now be able to bring new ideas or to facilitate new ideas. Helps the student to reflect. All right. And so here the student will design, they will formulate, they will plan, they will modify, right? Okay. Recently, there was a modification of a method that we all used to predict or to determine protein content. When you are determining protein content in our foods, they are what we call nitrogen factor. And we have used it all the years we started studying protein content of insects. But recently, a PhD study disputed that and said, no, when we use this factor, 6.25, it actually overestimates protein content in insects. Why? Because the chitin, which is not edible, is a polysaccharide that is also made of nitrogen. It has a nitrogen component. So the method we use actually uses that nitrogen to actually overestimate protein. And so that factor has been disputed now. And now new factors to predict nitrogen in insects are being developed. we are seeing them starting to come up. Okay, so the student will modify, student will create, student will propose new ways of doing it. So it's you want a very active student at this level, right? So this is not the question, this is not the time to ask them what is, right? You want them to discuss, to describe, to evaluate, to analyze. Okay. So they will do all manner of things. They will invent protocols, products, they will design buildings, they will create products. Yeah. They will also write their feelings in relation to a certain topic. Design a record, a book, or magazine, sell an idea, or devise ways to do things, or even make up a new theory, a new mode, a new language, a new code. Yeah, and use it and as an example to show actually this is what works. So as we come to the end, we are looking at lower order questions. So when you're supervising your students, you're looking at two levels of questions. Lower order questions, questions that help in remembering, questions that help in understanding, questions that help in application, the lower level of application that as I had said. But at graduate level, you want really to concentrate on the higher order of questioning, which leads to higher order of thinking. Okay, so you want them to apply to the high level. You want them to analyze situations, case studies. You want them to analyze experiments, to evaluate them, and finally end up creating ideas, protocols, products, etc. Is there a question before we break into groups? Joseph, you can check if there is a question for me, if there is a hand. There's a big debate in our Kenyan context where some people feel that PhD studies that say the effect of are not adequate for PhD studies. You cannot, have a topic like the effect of climate or effect of something. But then there is a school of thought that feels different. I don't know whether that has come across in your graduate school discussions and what you feel about it.
There's a hand from Professor Dominic.
Yes, Prof. Professor, we can't hear you.
Unmute yourself.
Thank you, John. It is important that we get data on the question you asked about Uganda and qualitatively explain the stunted, the high stunted child levels in Uganda. By district, my own district, Bushenyi, that produces the highest volume of milk and the highest number of local chicken eggs, has the highest number of stunted children by the last sample that will advise the next population census. Reason, men there are very selfish. Everything good is for men. Even grasshoppers were eaten by men. Eggs are for men. Liver is for men. And those good-looking chicken must go to the market. And the market is only attended by men. So some of this information is critical. You asked a very good question. And I think in some of our next encounters, if we could interrogate some of these salient issues, because it is stuntedness that even drives poor PhD delivery in the 3-4 decades to come. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Such kind of an answer cannot come at the lower level of thinking. You have now to have the students and researcher now at higher level of thinking, start analyzing data, start evaluating data, for you to be able to start creating new ways of handling malnutrition in Uganda. Because the truth is, there's a lot of food in Uganda, but is nutritional status only a product of food? I know I have nutritionists in this group who may add a word or two. I saw some nutrition names here. I think I saw, does someone wants to say something? I think I saw Silvanos Konyole, is that it's nutritionist from Masinde Muliro University, Kenya. Are you there, Silvanos? You want to say something before we go to the discussion groups?
Yes, I'm here, Dr. Kinyuru. Thanks. Well, we are also seeing an emerging trend where there are elements of the environment in terms of infection, because you see, when you look at the UNICEF framework since the 90s, which has also been revised, of course, there are those deep underlying issues, and one of them is the element of the environment. And now we are going deep down and we are noticing there are also elements of the gut integrity, the gut where actually the nutrients from the food are being absorbed. And we are seeing that in resource limited settings, there's a trend starting to show that the gut integrity may be impaired. That is why even the vaccines and so on, some of them really don't pick up the way they expected, because they are deep, they are absorbed, or especially those that are oral are absorbed in the lower gut. And if the gut is leaky, for example, the good nutrients or the high nutrients in the food end up being not absorbed. So it's multifaceted, as you have rightly pointed it out, and you cannot see it from one corner. That is right. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So we must have our students, PhD students and master students, thinking at that high level of analyzing issues, evaluating them, for them to be able to make conclusions and create solutions. Yeah. It's not just now looking at data as presented, but is asking yourself hard questions. And that is where we want our graduate students to be, high level thinking, right? Good. I want us to go into groups, and there will be 4 groups divided into 4 groups. One group will be agricultural sciences. Another group will be biological and physical sciences. This is basically based on, I'm grouping you basically based on your areas of discipline or specialization as you wrote when you are applying. There are those in agricultural sciences. These are the agricultural, plants, crop production, food technology, nutrition, agronomy, agricultural economics, etc., etc. Those will be one group, agricultural sciences. Then biological, physical sciences, basics, basic biology, molecular biology, physics, chemistry, and natural resources. The third group will be engineering and technology group. These are all the engineering, the technologies, ICT, etc. Then the fourth group will be humanities and social sciences. This is where we have people in policy, governance. I also want to put guys in finance there, guys in economics there, and related. So we'll open the breakout sessions, and I want you to go into your group. It's going to take 20 minutes, then we are going to reconvene very strictly. I know even in agricultural sciences, you're very diverse. Nutrition is crop, what. But when you go into that group, we'll do like we did the first day, agree on someone who is going to chair, and agree on an area of study that you want to focus on. You may not focus in all your various areas, but one can volunteer and say, I'm doing work or research in areas X, Y, Z. Just take 5 minutes to agree and share out what exactly you're studying. You don't have to give several so that you can pick which one. We can just choose to pick whoever volunteers. And then you ask the first question: what type of assessments are most appropriate for higher levels of the taxonomy? And how can we ensure that our assessments are valid and reliable? Okay, within that area of study, what types of assessments are appropriate for you to be able to ensure you are encouraging higher levels of thinking, higher levels of learning, of analyzing, evaluating, creating, yeah? And how can you ensure that the assessments you're doing to your students are valid and reliable? That will take you another 5 minutes. And then we ask, how can we effectively assess higher order thinking skills using the revised Bloom's taxonomy? And you cite examples. I'm going to paste these questions on the chat. Then you can pick them from there, because when you go into your groups, you may not be able to see, but I'm going to post them on the chat. But just take your time, pick a leader, pick a topic or an area of study, then quickly just what type of assessments, time yourselves 5 minutes, don't exceed. Then go to the next question, take about 5 to 10 minutes again, and then we'll reconvene and conclude. Okay?
Okay, I have a question.
Please.
Okay, for what will happen for those people who will have not automatically selected a group? Am I allowed to push them to any of the rooms or leave them?
Yes, please do. Please do. If in the next 3 minutes, someone will not have put themselves in a group, kindly assign them a group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the groups are open now. So pick a group, quickly go there. Pick a leader amongst you and take the next 15 to 20 minutes to answer those 2 questions. Welcome back, members, to the main group. I know some groups didn't manage to finish their discussions. I managed to hop into various groups, very good discussions. Unfortunately, because of time, we really cannot go on for too long. But probably I will request some groups to, in a minute or two, give us what they discussed as we conclude. Just a highlight of what they felt about the questions that we posted. Maybe starting from the engineering group.
Oh, just finishing, composing one or two things. I mean, the points.
Okay.
Just 1 second, 1 second.
We can do agricultural sciences. They don't have to be very structured, but we just want to hear what some of the things, maybe in a minute or two as we conclude.
Yes, Doctor, thank you. This is from the group 1 regarding agricultural sciences. One of the members volunteered a topic, and the topic was titled Analysis of Value Chain, of the value chain of coffee production. And as a group, we say that if we had a student with such a topic, in terms of analysis and evaluating, for example, they would be given maybe kind of do a document review, some of the key documents that are in line with that topic, maybe coffee production, value chain coffee production, and be given an opportunity to be able to tell us what are the statistics, what are the gaps regarding the value chain process. And then in terms of creating now from those gaps, would ask them, how do they think improvements can be made in terms of maybe of the process, and they maybe suggest that if a particular maybe process is done that could maybe improve on the outcome or improve on the income of the farmers, so that would be able to help assess the student in terms of being able to analyze the information and be able to identify the gaps and be able to create or develop new ideas in order to find solutions for that gaps. Unfortunately, we are not able to discuss the last question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Analysis of the coffee production value chain. Yeah, the student would look for gaps, evaluate gaps along the value chain, and probably end up with proposing new production systems or marketing systems or whatever they are, right? So at the end of the day, a PhD should be able to either provide new ideas, new insights, new protocols, new ways of improving the value chain, etc., etc. Okay, so the study topic for the PhD should be able to at least capture each of those aspects as much as possible. Analyze existing information, analyze data, literature, conduct an experiment or evaluation, analyze, develop opinions, and then propose improvements. Okay. Sometimes it could even go further to actually implement those improvements and again evaluate the impact of the improvements on the value chain. These are the high order kind of thinking and activities that we would probably want to see in that angle. Thank you very much. Humanities and social sciences.
Thank you. A member proposed a topic around which we have a discussion: the role of school committees in quality education enhancement in primary schools. And to proceed, there was a proposal that we needed to, first of all, find out what other scholars have done in that area and identify what could be missing in terms of the quality aspects in the primary school sector. Then we look at models of quality education and how such models would point at the pillars of quality and how to respond to certain models of quality in the school so that we relate that to the study that would be carried out. Then it was suggested that we would need to inbuild action verbs in the objectives that will then lead us in assessing these high order questions in Bloom's taxonomy. So that is where we were before we went off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Samuel. Yeah, role of school committees in school management, I think you said. Yeah, so you would first of all look at what are the practices. So you'd have the student analyze the current situation, then probably develop models to, be able to cover these gaps, and then probably evaluate these models on impact of how, and evaluate whether if you implement them, what is the impact, on the management of the schools by the committee. So you're not just looking at analyzing and gathering information. That's good, but then you have to go a step further and then start saying, then how can we cover these gaps that we've identified, right? You probably even want to have a student come up with a model and evaluate it in one school as a case study, and then measure specific parameters. Yeah, at that level, then they're able to now to say, well, we have this opinion, and this opinion has actually worked in school X, Y, Z, right? Yeah, good. So we must keep encouraging them towards analyzing, towards evaluating, and most importantly, create ideas, create what works, create new ways of thinking, etc. Good. Thank you very much. Engineering and technology, you're back. You're good.
Okay. Yes, I'm back. Okay. In this particular case here, it took us quite some time to settle on the topic. Because we come from different backgrounds, but finally we settled on the topic of enhancing the productive use of energy, especially in rural areas. So having settled on that particular topic, then we are looking at part of the requirements. We looked at analysis or analyzing this particular situation. So before we could go back to how to assessing and everything else, we had to analyze whatever topic we had come up with. And in this case, we thought of a case study. Based on the topic that we selected, we thought of a case study in a particular setting somewhere. And then as far as the case study was concerned, the first thing that we had to consider the potential, because different areas or different different situations are going to, with respect to this particular topic, we'll have different potentials for carrying out effective energy uses in the rural areas. For example, within the Maasai area, we'll assess the kind of potentials for these to succeed. And so we had to look at it from the social cultural setting of the area that we had selected. And once we finished that, we also had to look at the evaluation criteria. Now that we have selected a case study, how are we going to, as part of analysis, how are we going to evaluate our selection? And then finally, we had to ask ourselves, how are we going to ensure that our assessment is valid? So then we proceeded on to now assessing the higher value order. And so we had to consider synthesis, evaluation, as well as analyzing. And so here, time was kind of running out on us. And as part of analysis, we were looking at how the data was collected and how this particular data integrate and the methodology that was used. And then effective assessment. How are we going to ensure that? Maybe evidence-based solution, etc. And then I think somewhere along the way, the time, we ran out of time just before we could be able to proceed on beyond that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I don't want to add too much to the way you looked at it, but I think at the end of the day, the emphasis is that you must encourage these students to actually use the very high order thinking, analyze the different scenarios of energy uses, probably set up experiments to analyze efficiencies of energy use, different energy use in different settings, and then be able to evaluate the data they get, and finally be able to make and form ideas or opinions, and then be able to implement or use those ideas to propose new ways of use of energy, for example, or develop a new system or new equipment or policy change, etc., etc. So higher order of thinking, we must very strongly push and encourage our students. For them to be competent globally, they must be able to think, right, on the very high level, such that when they sit in a panel of experts, many times they will be called to give panel opinions or conference keynote speakers. They will be able to be speaking with an authority because they've synthesized, and they'll be able to respond to discussions competently, from a very high level. So members, I think we want to stop there because of time, and apologize for taking an extra 20 minutes of your time, but it was in the good interest of learning. Thank you very much. We can continue discussing in the group if there are issues and questions, but allow me to stop here and hand over meeting back to Patrick. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kinyuru. I'm sure we all appreciate Dr. Kinyuru for his extremely informative and interesting presentation. And on behalf of everybody, I'm clapping for you, Dr. Kinyuru.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dr. Kinyuru will be back with us on Wednesday with another presentation. And I'm sure we are all looking forward to that one. I don't have a lot more to add, except maybe to remind participants once again about tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's presentation will start at 11 a.m. Yeah, please make a note of that. And it will be delivered by our colleagues and partners from the Ethical Data Initiative, which is based in the UK. And so the reason we are, putting the presentation to start at 11 a.m. is basically to cater for the time difference between the UK and East Africa. So I hope you've made a note of that. There's not much more to add, but if any of you has any issues that they would like to communicate to us, the WhatsApp group is still open. It's accessible 24/7. So you can use that platform to get in touch with us. Otherwise, I wish you all a very productive day. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. Tumemaliza. Yeah. Karibuni. Yeah.
Just give me this,
Ile maneno yake tu.
ile ya okay.